Sonic the Hedgehog, a Valentine's Day movie. It's snowing on Mount Fuji. Hello, this is Giant Cube 9600, and the day has finally arrived. The Sonic the Hedgehog movie is here. No one is safe. So, I sort of went through a bit of a roller coaster of different moods, I guess, in the follow-up to this movie. A couple years ago, when they first announced there was going to be a Sonic the Hedgehog movie, my reaction was excitement. Like, cool, Sonic! That will probably be pretty cool. And then it sort of turned into a lack of excitement when some of the creative choices about the movie were announced. It was going to be live action, the main character was going to be a human, the old stuff that I've previously complained about on this channel. And my excitement level went kind of down, like, oh, this is going to suck. And then they slowly, in pieces, unveiled the horrifying truth that was the original live-action Sonic design, a horrendous sight which was not meant for mortal eyes. It was never meant for the world of the living. And then my reaction went to, this is going to suck, to, this is going to be a train wreck, which was a lot of other people's reactions. And I was actually planning to skip the movie altogether. But the director apparently grew a pair of functioning eyeballs, realized the abomination he was about to unleash on the world, and as you all are aware, the redesign was put out. And at that point, it started sort of being like, okay, maybe I will see this if they went to all the trouble to fix it, to, in the past few days, actually being kind of hyped for the movie, especially as the initial reviews rolled in and revealed it to be okay. So a couple months ago, when I did my reaction to the Sonic trailer, I predicted that the movie would be a functional kids film. And now, after having seen this movie, I can safely say that my opinion has not changed. It is a functional kids film. It is okay. It is adequate. It works. It's a little clumsy, but it works. And, I feel like that's kind of a shame because there's all kinds of interesting jokes that I could have made had this movie been the absolute garbage fire that we all initially feared it would be, such as this movie is the toughest of terrors, it is the darkest of days, follow me, set me free, trust me, and we will escape from this movie, or my personal favorite, go ahead and see this movie, do it if you dare. All of those jokes, which I cannot use because the movie is okay. Now this movie has a 65% critic rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and I think currently a 94% audience rating. So this is one of those movies where, like, probably if you see this, if you're the type of person who is interested in seeing this movie, you're probably gonna love it. I myself am something of a casual Sonic fan, if casual Sonic fans can be said to exist. So I kind of went into this not really knowing what to expect, just expecting Sonic, and I did get Sonic. And the reason I say this movie is just okay, and not mind-blowing or anything, is that it doesn't really take any risks, and it plays it very safe. And I don't mean safe for a Sonic story, I mean safe for a kid's movie. There isn't anything, aside from the aesthetic and the names, and a few kind of not really plot things. This seems like a generic, like, cut and paste kids movie that they just snipped out parts where other characters could be and put Sonic characters. Like, there's nothing about this that is firmly in the world of Sonic, and nothing happens in this movie that is unique to Sonic. It seems very paint by numbers to me. It's not ashamed of itself the way that something like Fan Four Stick was, but, like, I've made this comparison before, but when you look at the Detective Pikachu movie, like, that movie was clearly like, this is the world of Pokemon. We are bringing it into live action. We are going to present Pokemon its all its Pokemon glory, and if it's too much for you, then fucking, I don't know what to tell you. It's Pokemon. It's uncompromisingly itself. This Sonic movie spends a lot of time hanging around the house, and Sonic and Robotnik are the only two Sonic things that are in the Sonic movie. So, my personal feelings are that, since I am a fan, I do feel like this movie is less interesting to me as a fan than it would be had it more fully embraced the full insanity of Sonic. Because it seems like it's holding back on the insanity. Not that this is a serious movie, not that this is like totally straight or that it's joyless. It isn't those things. I did have fun watching this movie, but it seems like it's kind of like Diet Sonic. Like this is Sonic for a mass audience. Which, considering the movie's box office so far, might have been the smart choice. But let me get into the nitty gritty of why I think this movie is okay. So before I get into the nitty gritty, I should throw out right now that this review is going to have spoilers. Like I said, this plot is fairly standard and nothing really shocking or game changing happens at any point in this movie. So you can kind of guess what the beats are going to be before. So like saying no spoilers is kind of like, this is the type of movie that can't really have that big of spoilers, at least in my opinion. But anyway, so plot. Like I said before in the trailer video I did, this is a Sonic Enters the Real World movie. And what's interesting is that basically this movie is the closest we've ever gotten to a backstory for Sonic. Yeah, for real, no video games or comics or cartoons that I'm aware of has had like an origin of Sonic. This movie hints at it. We don't get the full thing, but we get... So basically, we're introduced... I swear to God, the movie opens with a shot from the climax of Sonic running through the city with Dr. Eggman in pursuit. And it's like, okay, are we at the end of the film already? But then it freezes. Like, yeah, it does the thing where it freezes. And it's like, yup, that's me. You might be wondering how I got in this situation. He doesn't say that. But, like, that's the exact scene it is. He might as well have said that. There was no reason for him not to say that, except for them to try to pretend like they're not doing a paint-by-numbers movie. And so Sonic then backtracks, actually rewinds through the entire movie and goes back to his childhood living in Green Hill Zone. Yes, his childhood. We actually see Sonic as a tiny little hedgehog of about 5 years old, I guess. You see, Sonic was born with this amazing power, and he was raised... This is kind of sounding weird when I recount it, by an owl wise lady named Longclaw, who told him that he has to hide his power because people are going to come for him and try to use his power for evil deeds. Sonic, being 5 years old, doesn't listen, and right after she tells him this, a tribe of echidna, and yes, they are echidna, attacks Sonic and Longclaw, forcing Longclaw to use the rings. So, like, the golden rings in this movie are not just collectibles that prevent Sonic from dying. They're actually like teleport devices. So you throw them and they grow into this giant portal and you could run through them to any world basically you can think of. You could just name the place or even think of it and it's there. So she sends Sonic to Earth and tells him you have to hide. And what gets me about this is that she sends little 5-year-old chibi Sonic alone through this portal to a planet he's never heard of, that it's only sheer luck that they speak the same language that he does. She's like, okay, see ya! Like, I get that the Echidna tribe are still coming, and she's gotta fight them off so Sonic can get away, but like, why does she have to fight them off? They're going through a portal through which the Echidna cannot reach. Fucking go with Sonic! He's 5 years old and you've just tossed him out into the world by himself! And that moment kind of speaks to, like, it's just one moment. And it doesn't sabotage the plot or anything, but the plot is sabotaged by lots of moments that don't feel fully justified. Like, I don't get why a character made this particular choice. And I'll name more of them as I go along. So basically, Sonic spends 10 years hanging out in a small town in Montana. Not talking to anyone because the owl told him to hide and keep running. So he's basically just been like spying on the human townspeople without their knowledge for 10 years. His favorite person to spy on is James Marsden's character, Tom Wachowski, who is a cop. And Sonic knows everything about Tom, what he does, what his job is. He doesn't know his name for some reason, but he knows where he lives. He watches through the window when he's watching movies with his wife. His favorite is Speed, starring Keanu Reeves, showing that Sonic doesn't have that great taste, but whatever. It's Keanu Reeves, it's fine. And basically, and he just carries on doing this. Now, during this time, Sonic's character arc is kind of established in that he is a sad and lonely kid. He's been by himself for 10 years. His one parental figure basically abandoned him. Like, the film doesn't treat it like abandonment, but that's what it was. She ditched him. And now he's just been kind of hanging out, not engaging with anyone and just wishing that he could be needed and welcomed into a family somewhere. And you see these scenes that are like kind of humorous, but also kind of sad, of him like playing a full baseball game with himself and playing ping pong by himself. And like, there's a lot of fun jokes in this movie about just how fast Sonic is. And all this time wishing that he could belong somewhere, which is a different portrayal from the games, because Sonic in the games was a very unfettered individual. He was a free spirit. He never stayed anywhere. He had friends, but he wasn't bound by them or really bound by anything. He just went, he was free as the wind, baby. And I have to say, I don't hate the new fettered approach to Sonic. I think it is a smart choice for a movie, because a character that isn't bound by anything, is free spirit, is like way past cool, like Sonic is in the games. That works for a video game and for a video game protagonist where you're playing as them. For a movie, you need something a little more grounded. So Sonic wanting to belong somewhere, and actually being bothered by his status as someone with an origin that he can't name, is not. Yeah, it works. Like, it makes sense for this movie in this setting. I don't want too much of this movie to be, like, comparing it to the games or saying... too much of this review, rather, to be comparing it to the games or saying, like, what I wish had been, or, like, the choices I wish had been. I'm going to try to review the movie as is. But anyway, while Sonic is lamenting how he'll always be alone, I guess he... Actually, it's kind of confusing what happens. It's right after the baseball game with himself. He runs around the bases really fast, I guess, as a coping mechanism. And the speed combined with his emotional distress triggers like this blackout, like a huge blackout. It knocks out the entire West Coast, the power grid of the entire West Coast. And it gets the attention of the US government and the Pentagon. And they decide that this is some kind of threat they've never seen before. It could be a terrorist using technology they've never seen. And it's sad to say, but this talk of terrorist attacks on U.S. soil and government agents after Sonic is not unprecedented in Sonic fiction. Sonic's weird, y'all. So they send their most dangerous, eccentric agent to collect Sonic, who is Robotnik. Now, this is the bit that this movie, it has a consistent tone. Like, this movie has, like, a very goofy, fun, like... kind of comedy, but comedy in a very pandering, like Gen Z way. I'll get to that, what I mean by that in a sec. But it has a consistent tone, but the exact rules of the world are inconsistent. Like, at first, from what it seems like, from the opening scene with Sonic hanging out in Green Hills, Montana. Yes, the name of the town is Green Hills. It seems like this is going to be Sonic is the weird thing, and James Marsden and his wife and life are going to be the normal thing. So it's weird meets normal. But then in comes Robotnik. And you all know Robotnik is played by Jim Carrey, so you know this is not going to be a subtle performance. But even so, we have pretty much basic army guys, maybe somewhat more comedic than usual. In comes this, like, sleek, like, Tesla-looking black truck. And Jim Carrey comes out with, like, the handlebar mustache and the black cape, and he's, like, fucking... Jim Carrey is someone who does not belong in the world of normal humans. And I don't just mean in general. I mean in this movie specifically. Like, Sonic... You think like this, Sonic is a source of weirdness in the normal world. But then here's Jim Carrey, who has apparently been living in this world and originates from this world, and he's just, like, so kooky and out there. And he's got, like, these flying drones that are, like, way more advanced than anything you could get at, like, Sharper Image. And he has this weird Jim Carrey way of talking. There's one guy where his establishing scene is when he shows up on the site where the army guys are investigating where the EMP burst that Sonic created came from. And he, like, gets on the army general's face. It's like... I can't even quote him. Like, I'm just struggling to remember. He's like, what's your name? And the guy's like, but it's like, no one cares. Because I'm in charge. I'm in charge. Like, that shit. It's like, who are you? Where did you come from? Why are you like this? I don't understand. So, I get that Jim Carrey, like, Eggman is not a subtle character. And it is possible, like, previous games and Sonic spin-off media have portrayed Eggman as a serious threat, like the fucking terrifying Jim Carrey Eggman in Sonic Sad AM, or even the Eggman from Sonic Adventure 2, who was, like, more of a menacing presence. And I feel like a more comedic take on Eggman is fitting for the tone of this movie. But what makes it odd is that it just seems like it doesn't fit. Like, it's supposed to be Sonic meets the real world, but how many times can I make the same point? But Eggman does not fit in the real world. He fits in, like, The Incredibles or something like that. So to have him just exist in the world and be called up by the Pentagon to investigate a thing, and he just comes in with his fucking broken glasses and chewing the scenery around him. Like, poor army guy who seems like a normal army guy is just like fading steadily in the background. He's turning more and more transparent the longer he stands in front of Jim Carrey. So anyway, Jim Carrey tracks Sonic to... Sonic has been given a bag of rings by the owl Longclaw, and she said, like, as soon as you're discovered here, use the rings, teleport to another planet. He's trying to do that, but through a set of kind of contrived circumstances, he ends up accidentally teleporting the bag of rings to the top of the transatlantic building in San Francisco, which is not where he is right now. Yeah, it's kind of a contrived series of events. I don't feel like recounting, but yeah, he's lost the bag of rings, so he can't get away. So he recruits James Marsden, Tom Wachowski, to help him drive Sonic the Hedgehog to San Francisco so he can retrieve the rings, make his escape before Eggman hurts anybody else. Because Eggman, when he discovers Sonic hiding out in James Marsden's house, opens fire with his drones, like bullet holes pinging the walls and shit. So basically the plot is a road trip movie, except not really, because they only make really one stop before they arrive in San Francisco. This movie's actually kind of short. At least it felt short. So that's basically the plot. Sonic bonds with James Marsden, finally gets that sense of belonging as they try to escape Eggman, who seems like he came from a different movie entirely. So, a lot of the problems with this movie are writing based, at least in my opinion. I'm a writer, so maybe that's just where I notice most of the flaws. But the dialogue, there's something kind of off with the dialogue in this movie. And again, it's not that it's at odds with the tone, and it's not the worst choice that a Sonic movie could have made. But there's something very... It's sort of like the problem that the Ghostbusters remake had, in that a lot of the dialogue is like, the actors were given the note, be funny. And so, like, every exchange is, like, trying to get a laugh, even in scenes where it's not warranted. There's an exchange early on that Tom Wachowski, James Marsden's character, has with his partner, because James Marsden, I don't know if I mentioned this, but he plays a cop in a small town, has this exchange with his partner at this police station, and they establish early on that Tom is bored with his current assignment at Green Hills, and he wants to be moved to the city where he can actually make a real difference in people's lives. More on that in a second. And he has this exchange with Wade where he's, like, sitting by the side of the track with the radar gun, and, like, nobody's coming by the road, and he's clearly bored out of his skull, and his partner calls. He's like, hey, where are you? And James is like, oh, I'm in Barbados, dancing with Rihanna. And the other guy's like, oh, really? And then Tom is like, what does he say? He's like, nah, I'm just kidding, I'm on the road. And his partner's like, wow, how'd you get on the road from Barbados so fast? Like, that kind of thing. It seems like it's very self-conscious kind of banter. Like, we are going to be funny and kooky, and we have to establish this, like, funhouse tone. Like, okay. And there's also, I mentioned Gen Z pandering. There's a lot of that in this movie. Like, a lot of the jokes just seem very, like, pop culture reference. Like, that kind of thing. It isn't super painful, but it is kind of like, not necessary. Not that Sonic historically always has the best dialogue. There's been plenty of cheesy stuff. I know it, you know it. But this is a different kind of cheesy. Like, you wouldn't catch... I don't know who at fucking Paramount was sucking Olive Garden's dick, but there is a lot of product placement in this movie, and unfortunately it ends up in the dialogue as, like, jokes, which I'm not crazy about. There's, like, one bit where, like, Eggman, when he drops by Tom's house, and he's, like, mocking him, like, Eggman is very, very proud of himself. Like, that's his main character trait, is that he's very arrogant, and he knows he's the smartest guy of the room, and he's fed up with all the idiots around him. So he's constantly bragging about how way intelligent he is and stuff like that. So he comes out and mocks Marsden for being like a down-home country boy who dreams of owning a Labradoodle and a Costco gift card, or like something like that. It's like, why Costco? Because somebody thinks that making jokes about brand names is funny, and because the brand names should be mentioned so that we can get our paycheck. And yeah, the dialogue doesn't feel fully like human speaking. It feels like what people who don't watch cartoons think cartoon speaking is like. I don't know if that makes sense. But even as, like, it's not like every joke bombs, or even that most of the jokes bomb. There are some pretty funny lines. There's a running gag basically where Tom's wife, Maddie, has a sister who really wants her to break up with Tom. I don't fully get why. The movie doesn't seem to give a reason why Maddie's sister doesn't like Tom. It's is it because he's white? Like, I don't know what else could be. But anyway, there's a joke where, like, when Tom shows up at their house with an unconscious Sonic, and like, at this point, Tom's name has been plastered all over the news as like a potential terrorist. So when she sees him come in, she like freaks out so much that it cuts to her like tied up on a chair in her own house because so that she doesn't freak out, I guess. And there's actually a lot of funny jokes and reactions to like these ordinary human beings seeing Sonic, including Eggman's, which was in the trailer, of his like sudden abrupt scream at seeing him. There's also one unfortunate joke that happened when Eggman shows up at Tom's house, where he, again, in that long scene where he's mocking Tom for his inferior intellect, tells him that he was writing formulas while he was still spitting up formula. Tom's response is to say, "I was breastfed." And Eggman's full line in response to this is, "Nice way to rub it in my orphan face," which is hilarious and tragic. But here's what makes this line really unfortunate. When I saw this line in the theater, it was pretty full. And so when James Marsden said, "I was breastfed," and Jim Carrey said "nice," immediately we all erupted into like raucous laughter. So we lost the rest of his line. So the exchange, what I thought the exchange was for like a while before I looked it up, was, "I was breastfed. Nice." I was like, what is this joke doing in a Sonic movie? It turns out that wasn't the full joke, but, yeah. But, that said, some of the jokes are in that rather unfortunate place where they don't fully make sense. Like, I get that, like, Roger Rabbit taught us, sometimes you gotta fudge the rules of a narrative to get a joke. But that's true in Looney Tunes and stuff like that. That shouldn't be true for a major motion picture. Even if it is a comedy. For example, the joke, like, we're not given a reason why, Maddie's sister doesn't like Tom. And that's not the only thing. There's a joke early on where, like, Sonic is saying, "You gotta take me to San Francisco." And Tom is like, "Oh, you could just run there." So Sonic runs. He's gone for like 2 seconds, then he runs back covered in seaweed and a fish. Apparently Sonic was able to make it all the way to the Pacific Ocean before realizing he didn't know where to go and running back. Alright. So you're telling me Sonic can run to the Pacific Ocean from Montana in like 3 seconds, and he somehow needs Tom to drive him there. Well, they try to justify this by saying that Sonic doesn't know where to go, but, like, maps exist. Like, map quests exist. Print out the directions, give it to him, send him on his merry way. And I get that he's a teenager, and it's like, the whole arc of the movie is him finally finding a place where he belongs. But, like, Tom doesn't know that backstory. He doesn't even fully know what Sonic is, and he has no need to get mixed up in a guy who already tried to shoot at him. So it's like, bye. And that really leads me to the thing that I feel like drags the whole movie down, and it kind of ties into the The problem I said earlier of this movie not immersing itself enough in Sonic for my taste is that there is a dead weight that is bringing down this movie, and it is Tom. Tom has nothing to do. He doesn't fully belong here, and he's so at odds with what Sonic is that I feel like it's not worth it to have him here. And the problem is not with James Marsden. Like, James Marsden turns in a fine performance. He's awake, he gets in some funny lines, he's here, you know, he's clearly working. Like, he's not sleepwalking through this. And this role cannot be easy. Like, acting opposite the CGI Sonic and then Jim Carrey, another cartoon character, like, that's gotta be difficult. And I don't want to, like, downplay him or feel like I'm shitting on him. The problem with Tom, again, is not in the acting, it's in the writing. So basically, Tom's arc is that he wants to be transferred to San Francisco, which he gets approved to do near the beginning of the movie. In a scene just between him and his wife where Sonic isn't seen or mentioned, that makes me realize, like, human couple, when's the Hedgehog coming in? Like, I feel like that scene wouldn't hold children's attention, but whatever. So because his thing is, like, I want to be needed. I want to, like, be needed in a life or death situation. Except Tom's life in Green Hills seems pretty great to me. Like, he has a loving wife who is, by the way, the world's most supportive and patient woman. Like, the amount of bullshit she puts up with in this movie is amazing. From her husband just showing up at her sister's place with an unconscious alien hedgehog and fucking, like, deciding, I'm going to transfer to San Francisco, which she's okay with, even though it means she'll have to drop her practice as a veterinarian, to him changing his mind and saying, no, I'll stay in Green Hills, and she's cool with that, too. Like, this is just the most supportive woman in the world. And then, like, his life in Green Hills, he has to, like, babysit his partner, but he's clearly needed. Like, his arc of I want to be needed falls flat because everybody in town knows who he is and needs him. He's the first person people call when they need help with their shit. Like, when the power goes down, his partner at the police station immediately calls him to tell him what to do. Like, I kind of feel like this town would collapse into anarchy without him, which is something Sonic points out, but that itself is a problem too. I'll get to that in a second. So, like, his thing of, like, I want to be needed, I want this, it's like, you don't, do you though? Like, it seems like you've got a great life. You don't. And, like, James Marsden having a great life is not a problem in relation to Sonic's story, because Sonic's whole thing is that he's been watching Tom creepily through the window wishing to belong. So, like, that his life seems so glowing and wonderful makes sense from the point of view of Sonic. Like, I want to be part of that world. What would I give to spend a day? You know, that thing. But, and it wouldn't be so bad, except, like, I get that they're trying to give James Marsden a reason to go along with Sonic, that this is his chance to make a difference, but he already does make a difference. And if anything, he's slowing Sonic down, because that car does not go as fast as Sonic. We see in an action sequence that it does not go as fast as Sonic. And what's worse is that because he's advertised as the main character, like, it's not that Sonic gets the shill or that he's barely in the movie. Sonic is in a lot of this movie, and he has the character arc and blah, blah, blah. But James Marsden has more screen time with Eggman than Sonic does. Like, at least it feels that way, and it should not feel that way. Like, Eggman is Sonic's nemesis. But James Marsden actually opposes Eggman more than Sonic does. When Eggman shows up at Tom's house, he's blocking the door and being like, it's almost like they're doing a kid version of the scene between Bruce Willis and Alan Rickman in Die Hard, where, like, each one is trying to gauge how much of a threat the other is. And, like, there's a scene early on where, like, when Eggman first sees Sonic, he punches him in the face. And then later, when they're on the run, Tom tries to call his partner at the police station, but he's intercepted by Eggman, who tells him, like, very creepily, like, I've never, ever lost a fight. I will find you. And, like, they have more of a rivalry than Eggman and Sonic do. Like, Sonic has not exchanged words with Eggman really at all at this point. And up until the climax, Sonic's interactions with Eggman are limited to just interacting with his robots and not directly being face-to-face with him at all. So it comes across like Marsden is Eggman's rival, and that so should not be the case. Like, what if in the new Mario movie, they introduce a new character that we've never seen before in any media who opposes Bowser more than Mario does and ends up punching Bowser in the face and getting away with it? Like, that would be really weird, right? I don't think I'm being picky when I say that that's a serious flaw with this movie. Eggman is Sonic's nemesis. Like, Mario has Bowser, Link has Ganon, Kirby has Hunger. Like, this rivalry should be the focus, especially since they're two weird beings. And the movie does build them up, like, adds elements as if they're going to be, foils. Like, I've already mentioned the unfortunate orphan line that we laughed over, where he says, "Rub it in my orphan face." So, like Sonic, Eggman comes from a background of not having a family, and he's on his own. And also like Sonic, Eggman is very proud of what he's capable of. With Sonic, it's his speed. With Eggman, it's his intelligence and his robots. And with Sonic, but they contrast, because while Sonic longs to have friends and longs to be part of a family, Eggman, at one point, he's like creepily rubbing his robots. He's like, "I can't rely on people, they only hurt you." He doesn't say that, but that's basically the gist of it. Like, robots are where it's at. I love them. Like, Sonic is like, I want friends, and Eggman is like, I don't need friends. So, like, they oppose each other in that way. But Marsden ends up being his foil, and so those elements are kind of jumbled and lost. As for the relationship between Tom and Sonic, it sort of works. You get what they're trying to do. They're trying to establish Tom as, like, this family figure. Like, finally Sonic has made a friend, and even though it's shaky at first because Sonic is an ungodly abomination and Tom has his own plans that don't have to do with getting mixed up with said ungodly abomination, they slowly form this camaraderie and get closer together, and Tom actually becomes something of a father figure to Sonic, sort of like the cool, clueless dad who's never had a kid before. And it works. It could have been better, but it also could have been worse. There's a weird scene kind of midway through, and it's in the vein of kind of things seeming to be at odds with what the movie is trying to do, where, like, Sonic, like, begs and pleads Tom, like, "You gotta take me with you. Please take me to San Francisco. People are gonna get hurt. I gotta run." And Tom's like, "Okay, fine, get in the car." They're in the car for, like, 2 minutes before Sonic sees, like, a tourist trap, like the world's largest yarn ball. He's like, "Oh my god, stop the car, we have to go!" Which is a moment that was trailer. It's like, hang on. Weren't you saying 2 minutes ago that you have to go right now, that this is urgent, this is life or death? Why are you wanting to stop there? And then, like, later they stop at a bar, again, so James Marsden can call and have the tense scene with Eggman without Sonic. And, like, Sonic gets distracted by the bar and wanders off. It's like, Sonic, world-ending life or death, according to you, why are we messing around in this bar? And then, like, Sonic and Tom hang out in the bar for a while because, to be fair, it's because Sonic wants to have fun with somebody before he leaves Earth forever, which is like, okay, that has some narrative weight to it. But then they end up starting a bar brawl, which, like, Sonic is a hero, he's supposed to be saving the world, but it seems like in this case he caused mayhem without any real justification for it. And and this scene also demonstrates why he doesn't need Tom, is because he actually goes into hyper time, like in Clock Stoppers or X-Men First Class, where, like, everything freezes around him and he's able to get Tom out of the scrape and, like, tie up, basically, like, manipulate the environment to tie up everyone in the bar and then leave with him, and everything, like, time resumes and everything collapses, and one burly guy who had already decked Tom, like, crashes through a window. It's like, there he goes, Sonic the Hedgehog, keeping us safe. It's like, why did we stop here? Why are we doing this? Why are you hurting people? That Sonic the Hedgehog is not supposed to... And this is kind of a problem that deals with the plot itself. Eggman in this movie is a government agent sent to capture Sonic. In the games, Eggman's plot was to take over the world, and Sonic was trying to stop him. So it was a very clear good versus narrative, and I'm not saying adding more nuance to that is a bad thing. It absolutely is not. But in this case, rather than adding nuance, it seems like it's muddled and lower stakes. Eggman is working for us. He's not trying to take over the world. He's just trying to prevent, like, we know that Sonic isn't a threat. He's adorable. He's clearly has no intention of hurting anybody. But the US government doesn't know that. They don't know what caused that blackout. It was a big blackout. Eggman is trying to contain what might be a world, like a global threatening threat. And the movie treats it like he's doing what his video game counterpart was trying to do. And it seems like Sonic, this movie has a little bit of the Man of Steel problem where, like, Sonic is saving us from problems that we would not have if Sonic were not here. So it feels like the world is a worse place because Sonic's in it. Now, Sonic does not cause nearly the collateral damage that Superman does in Man of Steel. But it does have that problem. Like, can't the hero save the world from a problem that they did not cause? Like, is that too much to ask for a superhero movie? Because Sonic the Hedgehog is kind of a superhero movie. Yeah. So, I guess we should get to the climax. Before I do that, well, yeah, I'll tie this into the climax. So basically, I should say that the visual effects in this movie are pretty good, which is not something that we were saying back when the first reveal of the design came out. But, like, Sonic, the design is cartoony, but it is cute, and it does make me realize that this movie would not have worked had they not changed that design. Because, like, a lot of the pathos for Sonic is, like, I want to be long and, like, looking into the window and, like, wanting to be there in the warmth and laughter. And, like, those big green puppy dog eyes are just so lovable. And that scenes would read very differently if he looked the way he originally did. It would be less, "Aw, that's so cute. It's like a puppy dog," and more, "Demon." There's this one character in Green Hills who doesn't get as much screen time as you'd think. He's kind of built up to be a major character, but then he isn't. He's called Crazy Charlie, and he's the only one before Sonic reveals himself to Tom who is convinced that there's a blue speed demon running around in the forest. He actually calls him the Blue Devil, and he shows him a drawing of him that looks identical to, like, the mimetic Sonic drawing. Like the janky-ass crayon. It's identical. It's like, so that's in a major motion picture now. Thanks for that. And, like, honestly, if Sonic looked the way he did, Crazy Charlie's paranoia and, like, setting out huge bear traps for him and such would be totally justified. Like, if I saw that thing running through the backyard, I would call an exorcist. I wouldn't lie. It's like, "Hello, Father. There's like a chupacabra or something outside. Please just go." I'm scared. Please. So anyway, but, like, the robots in particular, Sonic doesn't look like he's really there. It looks cartoony. It looks like good CGI, but, like, you kind of get that, like, James Marsden is having to act opposite nothing. The robots look like they're actually there. There's one particularly cool sequence, and one of the few actual action sequences in this movie. Be surprised how much talking there is. Where, like, Eggman is chasing after them in a truck. And that big black Tesla truck I mentioned earlier. Sonic flips it, and they think that's done. But then Eggman remotely pilots a second little, like, rolly car robot after the truck. They destroy that one. A third, like, one-wheeled robot pops out of that. They destroy it. And then, finally, a fourth tiny little helicopter flies out of that robot. And Sonic is, like, cooing at it, like, "Oh, look how cute it is." And then it starts, like, sawing the top of Tom's truck off. So it turns the truck into a convertible. And, like, that sequence of, like, the Matryoshka robot was pretty sweet. So we finally get to the climax. And so we're in San Francisco. Tom bullshits his way to the top of the transatlantic building by saying that he's a cop and he's here to prevent a suicide, which is another joke that doesn't make sense with the movie's plot. Like, it's already been established that James Marsden's picture has been posted all over, like, every news channel. This guy is a potential terrorist. He's really dangerous. Turn him in immediately. And when James Marsden shows up at Maddie's sister's place, she immediately recognizes, like, "You're a wanted criminal. I knew it. I knew you shouldn't trust this guy." But, whatever. And also, the woman at the counter at the transatlantic building notices that he's carrying a Montana badge. So it's like, you came all the way from Montana to prevent the suicide, but she lets him up anyway. So anyway, they're up there. Sonic is saying his goodbyes before he leaves. And then Eggman pulls up in, in his fucking flying suit. And so he launches a bunch of missiles at them to, like, he doesn't care about collateral damage because he's here to stop Sonic. Sonic goes into hyper time again, but then something actually kind of cool happens because Eggman was expecting this, so he presses a button, and at first, like, since Sonic has frozen time again, the finger's slowly moving towards the button, but when it hits, the whole ship shakes, and it goes into hyper time with Sonic, because early in the movie, there's kind of this MacGuffin that one of Sonic's quills fell out, and the one quill has Sonic's powers in it, so even though it can't run because it's a quill, Eggman figured out a way to tap into its energy and access Sonic's super speed. So he goes into super speed with Sonic, and Sonic is totally thrown by this. So he's like scrambling to save Tom and Maddie while Eggman is now keeping up with him. And it's a cool moment because it shows like, you underestimated him, Sonic. Your showboating got the head of you. It's a shame that they don't do as much with it as I feel like they should. Like, I feel like the climax of this movie is too short. Because it is a cool concept for a climax. At first, we see the chase through San Francisco, which we saw at the beginning of the movie, but then Sonic starts getting the rings out. So he throws a ring to teleport Tom and Maddie back to Montana. And then he throws another ring and he's like running through Paris, and he's running through Egypt and China, and they're like warping here and there, and it kind of almost reminds me of the climax of the second Thor movie, which again involves teleporting throughout the world during the climactic fight, which was a really fun sequence. But I kind of wish they'd gone further with it, like warp to more places, use more of the fact that Eggman can go to super speed with him. Like, Eggman can't keep up with him, which is necessary for a chase, but I feel like they could have had more fun with it. But finally, they warp back to... I'm just going to go ahead and describe the ending to you. They warp back to Green Hill, where Maddie and Tom are, and it looks like Eggman has got Sonic. He's actually managed to hit him, and he's knocked him out. But then, Tom, Eggman's real rival, jumps on top of the ship and threatens him, and is able to, like, give a rousing speech. He basically, like, Eggman taunts him, like, why would you sacrifice your life for this freak? And Tom says, he's not a freak, he's my friend. And when he says those words, Sonic basically goes Super Saiyan. Like, his eyes light up like they did when he caused the blackout, and he gets the power boost he needs to strike back against Eggman and teleport him away to a distant planet. So, I don't fully get, like, I get the intent behind the climax. It's, Sonic has finally found Sonic finding acceptance and being willing to be accepted by a guy who initially wanted nothing to do with him has given him the second wind he needed to strike back. But logistically, it doesn't fully make sense. It's like, why did he get the power boost? Before, he got a power boost when he was upset. Here, he got it because he wasn't upset, so any strong emotion can trigger it. Okay. Apparently Sonic, and like also blasting back Eggman involves like shooting lightning beams out of his hands like he's a Sith Lord. Like, what are you doing? What is that? I don't that's not in keeping with what Sonic's abilities are. Why is he shooting lightning? Whatever. So yeah, at the end of the movie, basically everything wraps up. Sonic has decided to stay on Earth because here is where he's needed. He's going to protect the people he loves. He's going to use his powers to fight back and not run away. Actual paraphrase line in this movie. And Tom and Maddie basically adopt Sonic. Yeah, they move all his stuff into their attic so he can sleep there. And they even say something about him having to go to bed because it's a school night. Sonic in a classroom. That's not going to work. Can you imagine Sonic just sitting there in a language arts class like... Hey, commas. What are you supposed to do with semicolons? Yeah, so, again, them adopting Sonic is sweet, and, like, it isn't what would happen in a Sonic game, but for this narrative and what they're trying to do, it works out fine. Also, one more insulting thing happened. So, you know how I said, like, Eggman isn't the huge threat that he is in the games? So at the end of the movie, the Pentagon official who initially assigned Eggman to Sonic's case shows up at Tom and Maddie's house, and he's like, the U.S. government would like to thank you for keeping quiet about recent events. Here is an olive... Here is a gift from us. Like, basically the government's saying, like, you know that whole terrorist thing about you defying us and hiding the hedgehog? If you just shut up about it, then we're cool. Like, what? And it's like, and Tom is like, I haven't seen Robotnik either. And the guy's like, Robotnik doesn't exist. There is no such person. Bye. Like, what the fuck? You hired Eggman to go after Sonic, and now you're just forgetting about him? What did he do? He's stranded on an alien planet with no way back. I don't feel like he fully deserved this. He was just doing what you wanted him to do. Yeah, he was kind of a jerk about it, but since when has the U.S. government cared about that? And also, this is a joke that really got me. And I don't think it's funny for the same reason. I don't think the movie thinks it's funny for the same reason I think it's funny. The government official says he's got a gift for them if they keep their mouth shut. He hands them an envelope. They open it, all excited, thinking it's going to be like a huge amount of money or like a summons from the president or something. Which a summons from the president would be a terrible gift. Almost as bad as the one they actually get. Like, actually worse than the one they actually get, which is a $50 gift card to Olive Garden. It's like, wow, $50 at Olive Garden. You could have just punched me in the face and spit on my wife, and that would have been a better gift than $50 at Olive Garden. Are you fucking kidding me? I would rather die than eat $50 worth of food at Olive Garden. And Tom and Maddie are disappointed, but they seem to think this is an okay gift. It's like, no! Like, that guy just shit on you on your own doorstep. $50 at Olive Garden. I ought to smack you. So, I've spent a lot of time bitching about this movie. And I'm not fully done. But I will say, like, I want to reiterate what I said at the beginning of the review, which is I did have fun. I do not regret watching this. And one of the most fun parts of it was the crowd I was with. Like I said, I was with pretty much a full theater, which is not unusual for Friday opening night. There were kids and adults there. And this crowd was clearly full of Sonic fans who were very happy to be here. And I just loved the positive energy in the room. So, like, I have a lot of friends who are, like, you know, professional writers, and, like, one of them said that he was expecting the Sonic movie to bomb. He's like, no matter, like, it doesn't matter if they redesign it, it's still gonna bomb. And I'm like, oh, son, you don't know. Your ignorance. You don't know the ways, man. You don't know anything, because there is one truth. There are several undeniable truths in this world. The sun rises in the west. Every summer will be hotter than the previous summer. And the internet is fucking apeshit for Sonic. Like, something about Sonic just appeals to people. People just love Sonic. And I felt that love. There was, like, wild cheering in the room when the Sega logo popped up at the beginning of the film. And, like, people were, like, laughing. They were cheering. They were having a great time. And there's first of all, there are two credit scenes. One happens immediately, like, I think before the credits starts, actually. You see Eggman in the planet he was stranded in, and he's clearly, like, losing his mind. He's, like, shaved his head bald so he actually looks kind of like he did in the game. Then he's, like, talking to himself, and there's even one point where he, like, starts to adopt, like, the gravelly voice that Eggman has in the games now, which I can't duplicate because it's too gravelly. But, like, he sounds a little bit like game Eggman. Before, and he still has Sonic's quill, which establishes that yes, he will find a way out of here, and that Sonic is gonna fucking pay when he does. I imagine him, like, showing up in the sequel like, you did this to me! And Sonic is like, who are you? Because they barely interacted. But anyway, there's another credit sequence after that, and if you care about spoilers, stop watching now, because this is the only thing that's spoilery. We see, like, a cliff overlooking Green Hills, Montana. Another ring portal opens, thrown from nowhere, and who should step through but Tails the Fox? Yes, and he even has, I looked it up, the same voice actress that he does in the games. And he's got his little quadrant thing, and he's like, he's here, all right. I hope I'm not too late. And he flies out to look for Sonic. The theater I was in went nuts when Tails showed up. It was like, yes! Tails! It was so great. And the moment when Tails shows up makes me realize what this whole movie was. It was a prologue for when we get to the actual fun stuff in the sequel. Because now Tails is here, now Eggman has gone insane, and now has a real grudge against Sonic, and has been declared a non-person by the US government, so he's an independent entity like he was in the games. So we're finally going to get some more of the mayhem and fun that Sonic was. This was all just prologue. So I kind of get what this movie is trying to do, is trying to ease people into Sonic and not throw them into the madness all at once, but like trying to go like, here's Sonic, here's Eggman, now more stuff is coming. And I would be shocked if this movie didn't get a sequel. Like, considering how much money it's making already, and, like, the plot elements is set up, like, clearly, like, they're anticipating a sequel to be made. Like, with Tails coming into the end, Eggman adopting his game appearance. And, like, at the beginning, we never find out why those echidnas were after Sonic. Like, aren't they supposed to be the good guys? Like, Angel Island, Master Emerald, Cows, all that. Like, why are they after Sonic? Like, what do they want with him? I'm actually still... They were shooting at them! They had arrows and spears, and they were shooting at this owl woman with a kid. Why was this happening? The movie doesn't say, because Sonic gets caught up with the shit with Eggman that he caused. So, like, that's a loose thread, and I am interested to see where it goes. Like, this movie was not so terrible or so non-functional that I'm not interested in seeing the next one, because I am. And I do want it to delve more into... the world of Sonic, and maybe it was a good choice to ease up on it and slowly introduce those elements. So, like, seeing this movie in a theater with a lot of Sonic fans is a lot of fun. At least I found it to be a lot of fun. One final thing. A lot of people have been calling, like, Jim Carrey, like, saving grace of this movie. Jim Carrey's carrying the movie. He's so funny. He's great. He's pretty funny, but I do feel like something, and like I said, the goofier Eggman works for what this movie is trying to be, but something about his performance seems kind of directionless. I remember way back in my Ninjago review, back in like 2017 or so, I mentioned that Sensei Wu, the version of Wu in that film, seemed so kooky. It didn't seem fully like there was a sentient mind underneath, and that is almost seems to be kind of true of Eggman. Like, he's just, like, so out there and so, like, flailing, and, like Jim Carrey, like, has a lot of energy, and has a very free-flowing body, which seems weird to say, but he never feels confined by anything. He's, like the scene where he's dancing, he's, like, jerking around, and, like, he's like a rubber man, almost. He just has so much, like, motion to him. But there are certain line deliveries where he clearly doesn't know what he's doing. Like, the only direction he was given was, be goofy. And he's like, okay. Like, there's a line early on where, like, Sonic is able to get away from the Matryoshka robots. And his line is, can somebody give me a big fat break? Now, granted, that's kind of a shitty line, and I don't know if there's a good way to deliver that line, but the way he did it is like he clearly doesn't know. He clearly doesn't know if there's a good way to deliver that line either, because he's like, can somebody give me a big fat break? Like, you're doing your best. You're trying. Like, no one can say that you're not trying. And there was another line earlier where he has a sidekick. I'm not sure why they bothered to give Eggman a sidekick, because, like, you'd think for somebody to be working with Eggman, he'd have to have, like, the right kind of presence. Like, this would have to be someone you remember. Nah, this guy is, like, barely memorable. His only real reason to be here is to be, like, fucking drowned out by the tidal wave of Jim Carrey. So this scene was in the trailer, too, when he brings him some lattes. He's like, I just thought you might want a latte. And Jim Carrey's like, of course I would! I love your lattes! I love the way you make them! Like, stop yelling, 1. 2, can someone please give Jim Carrey some direction? Or something. He just... There are a few... Like, he never seems completely lost, but there are a few moments where it seems like something needs to be adjusted so it comes across as less... Like, again, this movie is geared to be friendly towards small children for the most part. So... I think that would make small kids laugh, but it's just, I don't know. I know Jim Carrey is a divisive actor, and I don't dislike him. I loved him in The Truman Show. I even like that weird, like, motion capture a Christmas Carol movie. So I feel like some people are saying Jim Carrey is kind of an acquired taste. Like, if you love him, you'll love him, and if you kind of feel weird about what he's doing, he's a likable guy even when his stuff doesn't work. But yeah, there are certain moments and lines, and even just in general, the performance just seems like be kind of soullessly goofy. But man, he looks great in that handlebar mustache. Something about the mustache is really looks good on a man. I don't know. Anyway, so there's a lot more that you could say about this movie. If you saw it, let me know what you think in the comments. I had a lot of fun. Like, I did. This movie is flawed. I wouldn't maybe have made some of the same choices that it did, but I did have fun. So it has that going for it. So yeah, I'm Dragon Keeper 96600. Hope you had an awesome Valentine's Day, and even if you didn't, like, the Sonic movie is out, so you got that going for you. This is Dragon Keeper 96600 signing off.